galaxy, which was 3 million light years away. In fact, you would be able to see creation going on as you looked back in time. If creation happened 10,000 years ago, then you could look at stars being created 10,000 years away, 10,000 light years away. And of course, we know that's not happening. The odds of life as we know it coming about on a planet 1 in 10 to the 15th power, or 1 over 10 to the minus 15th power, that it was actually designed. Anybody that understands evolution, including biochemical evolution, knows that it didn't just happen. Things happen in little steps, and the evolutionary process preserves those steps. Richard Dawkins draws the analogy of walking up a hill. If you have a random thing happening around a hill, it might be very unlikely for somebody to get all the way to the top of the hill. But if you had something in place that provided a selective advantage to going up the hill, a ratchet or something like that, or maybe just something naturally occurring that every time something went up the hill just a little bit, it would be more likely to go up than to go down, it would eventually get up to the top of the hill. You wouldn't have to go up to the top of the hill all in one great big leap. It would be incremental, and that's exactly the way that evolution works. If you look at the analogy, what good would half an eye be? Well, we can take the lens out and you get an eye like they have in squids. You can take the focusing out and you have an eye like you have in many very small creatures. In fact, people that used to have cataract operations, they wouldn't put lenses back in there because they couldn't, because of infections and stuff. They didn't have a lens, they couldn't focus, and they could still see. Even microscopic creatures like euglena and some others have little eye spots where they can detect light that's not even a single cell big. So not only does half an eye provide a selective advantage to a lot of animals, a millionth of an eye that doesn't even constitute a cell can provide a selective advantage, and as the selective advantage is conferred to future generations, if evolution favors greater complexity, if that gives survival value, then it can, then you will get more complex eyes and so forth. I guess my biggest problem with the whole creationism, God is wise and God created DNA and God created planets and all that kind of thing, is that there's really no way to get from any of that to the Christian God. You can get to, God didn't like that, I guess. You can get to many gods. You could get to Thor. You could get to Brahma. You could get to the Tao. You could get to Allah. You could get to Krishna. You could get to lots and lots of different gods. And these are mutually exclusive because Christians, for the most part, believe that if you worship the wrong God, you will go to hell. So based on this argument for design, based on this postulation that God created all this, you still haven't said what God is really like. How do you get from DNA to somebody that makes people eat their own children? How do you get from a planet with life on it to somebody that commands his followers to destroy a large number of people, of sentient, intelligent beings on that same planet solely because of their religion and because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time? I don't see any way to get a connection between a God who would go out of his way to create a universe and create living people and create a planet for us to live on, and then make it a point of telling his followers to kill other people. In fact, the Bible is unique in that no other book in history has been used as an excuse by its believers to kill other people who believe the same book. Most of the Christians who died as martyrs died at the hands of other Christians because they had some sort of a disagreement about what the Bible said. Why would God set things up that way so that these people would die as martyrs simply because other Christians had a different interpretation of God's book. So there's really no way to get from DNA and the apologetics of creationism and all to a message about divinity that gives you an idea about which God you're supposed to worship. A Muslim could make the exact same, a Muslim could make the exact same claim, a Hindu, a Baha'i, a Shinto, anybody, a pagan, could make the same claim about their God, and most of these religions are mutually exclusive. Christianity certainly is, and most of these people are going to wind up burning forever in hell because some ancestor 6,000 years ago ate something that God told them not to. Thank you very much.
Well, there's a long list to go through here. What's that? Thank you, thank you. Time to start now. Yeah, thank you for putting the clock back there. Okay, wow, a lot of accusations made. Let's start here. You didn't just hear from creationists, you heard from scientists in those particular clips that I showed you. And they're experts in their field, certainly more so than myself, and they should speak with a great deal more credibility than perhaps the non-scientists up front. Secondly, if evolution was to account for life as we know it today, just the sheer fact that it ended up the way it did is more of a case for some sort of theistic guidance than random processes and chance. So even the evolutionary argument continues to support a theistic worldview. The whole we don't fully understand evolution sounds like a conspiracy theory. It can account for things we don't know. Let's stick with what we do. And I've shown you some things that we do know tonight. Fourthly, I'd say if the Bible's so for destroying babies, why is it that atheistic worldviews, and listen, I'm not attacking atheists in here. There are a lot of good moral atheists. That's not what I'm saying. But understand this. Atheistic worldviews that attacks the sanctity of life is the driving component behind abortion today. And those babies certainly outnumber anything commanded in the Old Testament. Six, continue. You take atheistic ideas of ridding the world of God. And, you know, we're numbering in the upwards of 100+ million deaths throughout history. You know, just the suggestion that the majority of Christian martyrs have died at the hands of Christians is absurd. I would certainly challenge that claim to its core because today there have been more martyrs, or in this century there have been more martyrs than of all of history combined, and it's certainly not the hands of fellow Christians. So, you asked a great question, or the question was suggested to the audience is how in the world do we get from design to the designer? Or I'd like to go with how do we get from creator to Christ? Because it sounds nicer. You know, I'm a preacher, so we like that. Well, here's where I want to go with this. I want to get us back on track here. We've seen a lot of attacks, but still no proofs offered for the atheistic worldview. So I want to get us back on track with the debate here and continue to deal with what's on the floor, and that's the question, does God exist? I think it's time to move on to a moral argument. My moral argument is very clear, and it's this. It's not mine. It's been around for hundreds of years. That all cultures around the world understand right from wrong, good from evil. In no culture is it a virtue to lie, steal, and cheat, or steep, whatever that is. So, you know, how come? Why is this? Is naturalistic explanations to account for why we all innately know right from wrong? Well, no, it's not at all. And here's the philosophical argument. All laws have a lawgiver. There is moral law, conscience, natural law, whatever you want to call it. Therefore, there is a lawgiver. This is an old philosophical argument, but it is so